Welcome, everybody, to our fourth episode of Season 6 of the 98% Life After Prison podcast. Our podcast is dedicated to the roughly 18,000 incarcerated people who are released back into our communities each year, often with little more than a $45 gate check. I'm April Barber Scales.
And I'm Judy Van Wyk. Today, we're going to learn about North Carolina's participation in an ambitious national initiative to bring down recidivism rates and break the cycle of incarceration. Led by the nonprofit Council of State Governments, Reentry 2030 aims to break incarceration cycles by lowering the barriers to housing, healthcare, and jobs. In order to accomplish its goals, the 2030 initiative recommends states bring together people across all sectors of government to work collaboratively with community leaders and people with lived experience to reduce recidivism and truly provide a second chance.
In North Carolina, the 2030 Reentry Initiative is overseen by the Division of Rehabilitation and Reentry within the Department of Adult Correction. The division uses reentry simulations to help people understand the countless challenges people face after they're released from prison. People participating in a reentry simulation have a brief chance to walk in the shoes of returning citizens as they try to secure a basic ID, navigate the local bus system, operate a cell phone, or apply for a job. And that doesn't even include the challenge of finding stable housing.
In May, I had the privilege of interviewing George Pettigrew. He's the Senior Deputy Secretary of Rehabilitation and Reentry for the Department of Adult Corrections. We wanted to learn about the state's Reentry 2030 initiative, how it's designed, and how the department hopes to change the way our state approaches incarceration and reentry. Here's my interview with George Pettigrew. So you are overseeing the Reentry 2030 initiative. Can you describe the initiative, how that initiative came about, and really what is it?
Sure, yes. The Reentry 2030 is a national initiative that was started by the Council of State Governments, who is a nonprofit foundation that works on criminal justice matters, among other matters. They brought this to us in 2023, as I can recall, as an opportunity to get involved with this initiative. And the initiative is to create a process where across departments, across the state, that we transform reentry to make it improve the outcomes. So every state is different. The Council of State Governments did not put it's not cookie cutter, here's what you do, but they work with each state, provide technical assistance, and help guide us through creating the Reentry 2030. So we brought this to the governor's office. At the time, it was Governor Cooper. They were working on an educational executive order that involved correctional education. And among several conversations, it was decided that we would include Reentry 2030 and combine it with education, because education is so important to rehabilitation and assisting people while they're in custody to help give them the tools to be successful when they're released. So Executive Order 303 was worked on. All the agencies were contacted, all the secretaries, and talked among all the agencies of where they could help with this. Governor Cooper wanted to make sure everybody understood this is a whole of government coordination. All agencies are involved in this, coming together to support reentry. So that's when Executive Order 303 was signed on January 29, 2024 at the governor's mansion, and it dictated that we create a strategic plan by June 30th of 2024. So we had a short ramp to get this completed. The good news is the executive order already had a lot of strategies involved in it. including the 4 goals that our Reentry 2030 is built on. So it was decided that we would break it up into categories and create subcommittees and include people from the agencies, include people from the community that is involved in reentry, and also include those with lived experience on the subcommittees. They worked for 6 months, and we created the strategic plan that has 4 goals from the executive order, 26 objectives, and 133 strategies. So it was very, very comprehensive, and it had a lot of work for us to do. So that was submitted to the governor, I believe August is when we provided it to him. And the subcommittees stayed together and continued to work on those strategies. And of course, we have a meeting every other month now, bi-monthly, where we go over the progress and have a platform for agencies, along with our stakeholders, our organizations, and our people who are working on reentry to share what they're doing. And lately this year, we've done several panels now, which I think have been very beneficial. We want to do these panels to make sure people to see the work, can ask questions, and that we can have the people who are on the front lines doing this work, along with people that have lived experience, to share their story as well. So that's gone well.
So let's start with the goals. What are the major goals?
So we want to improve economic mobility by expanding the local reentry councils. Right now, we have 17 local reentry councils serving 19 counties. I apologize. We are still at 20, serving 23 through the end of 2026. This past year, we were able to expand with some internal funding for 1 year, and we were able to cover 53 counties. But that funding is not there anymore. So state is not able to fund them. But there are several that are still up and running based on other funding streams. So we helped start up 11 other local reentry councils across the state. And we're advocating for funding for them in various forms, contacting nonprofit philanthropic foundations. And also, the governor's office is recommending in their new budget $5 million for the existing local reentry councils to give them more funding at this time. So we'll see what the budget says, if there's any funding there, but we are still advocating with philanthropic foundations. So that's one of them. Another one is housing, to increase the housing across the state, which is a big issue. The other one is employment, helping with improving employment. Also, yes, mental health, mental and physical health. So we want to improve the mental and physical health, expand the housing opportunities, and remove the barriers for successful community reintegration. So that includes, getting a state ID, ensuring they have opportunity for insurance, Medicaid. So those are just a couple of the things that we're working on, but those are the 4 goals that we have.
Medicaid, they didn't have access to Medicaid necessarily until the legislature chose to expand Medicaid. Where does that stand now?
Yes. So I will say that there is a small group that did still have access to Medicaid. However, it was very small of the population that we had prior to expansion. When Medicaid was expanded in 2023, it looked like 92% being released are now eligible because it's just based on wages. Right now, where it stands, it is still expanded. There's still 92% coming out, but the beginning of 2027, individuals that are given Medicaid will have to show efforts to find employment. There's some rules that DHHS is working on for that. We don't know what those rules are at this point. They're advocating, as I understand it, that individuals being released from prison have a period of time before they are required to do these work requirements. I believe the legislature would have to approve that type of waiver. Right now, well, before this new law came into effect with work requirements, it was once a year you had to sign up and prove that you're eligible. Now it's going to go to every 6 months. So that's another requirement that will come onto Medicaid. That could affect the numbers, and it could affect people who are covered based on those two things. But I will tell you, the state had made a lot of progress. Not only was it expanded, one of the issues we had with the individuals coming out of prison, they were only eligible for the hospitalized Medicaid, meaning when they came out, Medicaid did not cover any behavioral health, going to a mental health clinic if they need that, or substance use services. Well, DHHS and DAC advocated for a change in the law for those being released. And it has been changed where when they come out, they are on what we call Medicaid Direct, which does have some funding that allows them to get behavioral health services if needed. So that was a good change that has happened that will help the population coming out. And that's not going to be affected by these new changes. The other thing right now is Medicaid going to continue to be funded and continue to be expanded? We haven't heard anything different on that at this point. Again, that's up to the legislature and the budget moving forward. So we'll see what happens there.
How do you know that 2030 is making progress? How are you measuring that?
Great question. We have metrics. We have 95 metrics on our plan, and so we are comparing where we were before to where we are now. It's very important to measure your progress and see how you're doing. For example, one of the things that we are trying to do is to expand the number of state IDs that we're able to issue prior to release. Those numbers have gone up. The other thing is signing people up for Medicaid. We are measuring how many we do group sessions. We've hired a couple of temporary employees that go around to the facilities and do group sessions with our individuals before they're released, give them the opportunity for Medicaid. So we know the number that we are signing up through that. The other is work release. We're trying to expand work release and measuring that as we go. So we have these metrics to see the progress we make. Now, sometimes we're not making progress. Sometimes we slip back a little bit, but we are measuring it, and we're looking at why this is happening and how we can improve it.
It's often said that reentry begins the minute that someone goes to prison. Mm-hmm. And right now, the Department of Corrections is facing, as you just alluded to, a $100 million shortfall. And my question is, you've got overcrowding, you've got short staffing. How can you implement the kind of innovative changes that you want to implement with the 2030 initiative when the fundamental system is under such stress?
It's a great question. First of all, we look for those strategies that we can accomplish that do not take funding that from our department, or if we can find funding elsewhere through grants or what have you. We also find ways that we can improve within the framework that we're working with. So there are opportunities. There are organizations that can bring in programming that we can find facilities that, yes, you can come in here, we can work and have you help out here. So there are certain things that we can do. But we are always advocating and educating and letting everybody know We do need assistance with staffing. In the pay is number one. We're also working on culture in the facilities. Secretary Dismukes and all of us speak about that all the time. Making sure that we are working on and having an appropriate culture within the facility for staff and for the incarcerated population. It's so important. We also, our tablets, that is not state funded. A vendor in the community nationwide, ViaPath, they brought the tablets in. They provide a tablet for every incarcerated person in the population. And, of course, it affords them to be able to call their families. It also allows them to play music and listen to it, some videos. But the thing besides that, we also brought video conferencing for their families so they can video chat with their families. They also have a free site that has over 3,000 courses. But those tablets have been a great resource on several accounts. They can go and do self-learning, and it gives them the ability to self-cope. When there are issues, they can go to their tablet and just have some time alone. So it's been very helpful. It has not cost the state funding. There is a business model. ViaPath is charging them for the time on there. But in my opinion, and this is my personal opinion, cost-benefit analysis of it has been very beneficial for our population. And it's been, in my opinion, a game changer for our population, and it's helped in this situation with the understaffing. Without it, I think we would have a lot more issues.
Where does the legislature stand with regard to this initiative? Is there any funding set aside for Reentry 2030?
There is no funding at this point with the legislature specifically for Reentry 2030. We have not requested any funding for Reentry 30 in itself. Now, agencies may have take up some of the strategies and put that in their funding request. I don't know that at this point. We have let the legislature know that it's here. We have this that we're working on. And at this point, the Reentry 2030 itself does not need funding. The plan, the work on the plan, that's just our business. That's the work that all the agencies do. Now, the specific strategies would benefit from some funding. For example, behavioral health subcommittee does have some strategies in it that could benefit from funding, and so could our housing side could benefit from funding as well. So, to answer your question, we have shared it with various legislators, and as I understand, they know about it, and we invite them to the meetings.
All right. I know the 4 goals, there are a lot of broad things, but housing, and you mentioned this, is one of the biggest challenges. And like right now, I think 1 in 4 people who get out of prison end up homeless. How are you going to be able to change that? What is Reentry 2030 working on to try to change that?
Well, as Reentry 2030, as a big part of it is cross-departmental. We are working with DHHS and other agencies, DMVA, to leverage any resources they have for housing opportunities. The other thing I would say about that 1 in 4, for 85% of individuals coming out of prison, they are on supervision, and they may be homeless, but I will say that our community supervision section works hard to help them in finding housing as well once they're out. So I would say that number is lessened in the first 30 days. So the other thing is we're looking to work with local governments, because housing is local. That's where a lot of the funding goes to, a lot of the planning is, and frankly, some of the barriers are. So we're working with local governments. We're working with North Carolina Housing Finance Agency as well on how we can do those small things to improve housing opportunities. So it's not going to be solved by us under the reentry, but I do think we'll find some of the what I call low-hanging fruit, the working together and sharing information and sharing resources that will improve the housing demographic you just mentioned, the statistic 1 in 4.
So you were talking about culture earlier. Really, when I hear about what Reentry 2030 is about, for me, I would interpret that as a move towards rehabilitation and a much more emphasis on rehabilitation versus punishment. And that's a really big cultural change, as you said yourself. And facilities, they have a lot of discretion on how they're run. The warden has a lot of discretion on how to develop a culture in each prison. So how do you get the buy-in of wardens and staff when you're really trying to transform, or at least that's how I see it, how we approach incarceration and reentry?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've done that I think has helped overall is we conduct reentry simulations across the state. We've made an emphasis to invite and encourage all our staff to do reentry simulations too, and talk to them about, you have a piece of this, important piece of this, no matter what you do in our facilities. 95% of our people in prison are coming out into the community. And we want to start day one assisting them in getting on the right track and getting those skills that will help them succeed when they get in the community. So we push that through our reentry simulations. Our leadership pushes that anytime they can, that it's important to offer these opportunities for people to have programming to work on their plan when they are released. And so those are two things that we do is with leadership. We also, with the reentry simulations, are working on doing them within the facilities with the population as well. So there's two tracks there. So we want to do it with the population to make sure they understand it's not going to be that easy. And unless you're really working on the plan to help make it a better change when you get out, to kind of help motivate them and make sure they're engaging the case manager to work on their project. So the reentry simulations have helped. When we've talked to staff that have been through it, the general impression is I just did not realize. I did not understand it. I did not know how difficult it will be. It was very difficult for me to go through this. I don't know how I would succeed, especially if I've been in for a long period of time and I need to step up. So we hear that over and over. So we're working on having staff go through that, especially leadership at the facilities when and where we can. And we've had we've had several wardens step up and schedule reentry simulations for their staff. So I think that's the way we help do it. We also, our leadership, we also push that reentry begins day one when somebody comes in. That is not, I don't think, has always been the emphasis in years past with other administrations or before we were DAC. It was with some, not to say it wasn't in different sections, but we're trying to, as a department, say it starts at day one and everybody has a piece of it to help it. And not only that, when we have this culture change, when we work with our population to get on and get programming and to work on their plan, it helps the facility in lowering any temperatures or any issues. It can help lower infractions, just makes it a good working environment. So we also emphasize, how it helps staff. And then when we talk about culture, there's the little things we could do for staff too. we're looking at different ways we can do that as a department, and discussing different things to help staff as well. It becomes long periods of time for them, 12 hours on shift, away from their cell phones, away from their family. Getting meals is not as easy as everybody would imagine for even staff. So it's important to give them ways to improve their work environment, which will naturally go down to our incarcerated population. You have a happy staff member, they're going to treat people better. So that's an important part of what our leadership and Secretary Dismukes is really emphasizing in helping the culture as well.
Is there anything else that you think needs to be said that I haven't asked?
No, I would just say, I know we say Reentry 2030, but this work is not going to stop with Reentry 2030. That's just a time frame, but we'll continue to work on these things. I will say we've been blessed with support from other agencies, and also the First Lady's office is very interested in and has been supportive. She serves on the Joint Reentry Council and is very interested in seeing reentry improved. So I have no doubt we're going to improve reentry, that it'll be in a better place by 2030. My vision is that these reentry simulations will be the exception here in North Carolina. It will not be like that when somebody comes out. And that's our goal here at Rehab and Reentry.
What are you most excited about this whole process? It's a lot of hard work. So, yeah, what excites you?
What excites me is when I meet individuals who have been out, have turned the corner, or have improved their lives, they're supporting their families, and are paying it forward, are coming back and helping others. That's what excites me. I have a lot of respect for, and there is so much talent, there's so much ability, and I really respect that they open up and bear their life, the worst mistake to all of us. That takes a lot of courage to do that, and that's what excites me when we see success stories. And that's what I'm in for, is to have more success stories across the board and help people, because that's what we are in the business, is the people business. And if we want to have a better North Carolina, a safer North Carolina, one that is going to continue to be the best in the nation, we need to help those that are most vulnerable to succeed in life.
You know, I took a look at the Reentry 2030 website, and I was surprised to find that only 7 states have signed up to participate so far. And there's some surprising states like Alabama. You know, April, I do have to say, it's really encouraging that North Carolina has chosen to participate, if for no other reason because it's a recognition that warehousing people without preparing them for the challenges of life after prison inevitably feeds an ongoing cycle of incarceration and recidivism. Also, it does nothing to promote public safety. What are your feelings about the Reentry 2030 initiative, April?
Well, I think it is a good start that North Carolina decided to participate, but there's still a lot more work that can be done. The tablets are good. However, they don't take away from what they really need, which is social interactions. You know, the contracts with the community colleges and the teachers that will come in. I think that they need more of that, so people will be more equipped to deal with more quote unquote real life situations.
Oh, I totally agree with you. And I also agree that the tablets are not education. There are very many people who can't really take advantage of them because they're halfway illiterate or they're just not self-motivated to work that way.
And they don't have the money.
And they don't have money. And that's another reason. Absolutely. You know, turning North Carolina's prison system towards rehabilitation and away from punishment, that's going to require an immense sustained effort. And I do think that Reentry 2030 is an important first step. But I'm not sure that it can make a substantial difference without the support of the legislature. And while it's true that the budget that passed in early July does give sizable raises to DAC staff and especially to correction officers, CO salaries still rank among the 10 bottom in the country. At the same time, the legislature cut $1 million in state support for Campbell University's Second Chance initiative. That's a program that offers a nearly free college education to qualified justice-involved individuals. There seems to be this attitude among legislatures that any money spent on rehabilitation is considered being soft on crime.
Yeah, North Carolina's not soft on crime, clearly, because I was held for over 3 decades, but that's a whole different ballgame. Campbell is a good program, but not everyone can take advantage of that due to the length of their sentence. There should be more Pell Grants offered, and rehabilitation is what makes an incarcerated individual heal and be able to maintain in there and moving forward.
I agree. I think education is a very critical way to heal people and to prepare them for life after and to engage them while they're inside.
Yep.
Well, that's our show for today. Next time, we'll get an update from a woman we interviewed last year as part of our Arise Collective series. Georgie Brown has now been out of prison a little over a year now. Thanks to the Campbell University Second Chance initiative, she's pursuing a degree in criminal justice and has a good job with Correction Enterprises.
We'll find out how Georgie has benefited from a renewed focus on rehabilitation in the North Carolina Department of Adult Correction. Also, stay tuned for our final episode when we hear from Kerwin Pittman, a formerly incarcerated man who's become an influential voice in the Reentry 2030 initiative. Until then, if you want to get in touch or just listen to old episodes, you can do so through our website, www.the98-lifeafterprisonpodcast.com. That's www.the98-lifeafterprisonpodcast.com.
Stay cool, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.